we are not turning in the assignment. And someone said, well, how do we know which one? And a lot of times I'll even give you an extra day afterwards, but you don't really know. When we took that homework quiz, to me, that was the homework quiz that we took on compound inequalities. To me, that was me testing if you could do everything that was on page 190, right? So there's going to be some times that we will turn that in, and there's other times that we will not. If I am looking at question 20 up here, so question 20, you're going to see questions like this on your test today, and I'm going to specifically talk about what's on your test, okay? On your test that's coming up next week on Tuesday. When I'm looking at your test, it's going to be next week Tuesday, sorry. Next week Tuesday. When I take a look at your test, I'm going to ask you to write and solve an absolute value inequality like question 20. The key thing that you always want to keep in mind when you're doing these absolute value inequalities is that you are thinking of x minus, and it should always be the ideal. What do you want to achieve? Jaden, I need you to stay facing forward, okay? Less or equal to, and then over here, this is going to be how things vary or how they changed. So when I look at this one, it says in sports, 53% of those surveyed believe the high school team will win the state championship, but there's a margin error of 5 plus or minus 5%. If I'm looking at this, if I'm talking about winning the state championship, those people that believe they're going to do it, I'm talking about x minus, am I talking about minusing 53 or minusing 5? What is my ideal? 53 is the ideal. That's where I think it's going to be on either 53% plus 5 or 53% minus 5. Okay? So 53% less or equal in this case to 5. And then when you are solving it, you could write your answer as saying, oh, I set it up and I did x minus 53. And again, you wouldn't necessarily have to show me this on the test, that it was greater or equal to negative 5, and x minus 53 was less or equal to 5. Because when you add 53 in all of those cases, you're going to end up with x is less or equal to 58, and it is greater or equal to 48, correct? When you add 5 to negative. So could you say the margin of error is between 48% and 58% and have labels with these? Yes, I would take those answers if I was looking at it. Okay. Questions on any other one? Okay. So what's on your test? And when is your test? If you turn in your notes, go back kind of to the middle of your notes, right before you saw the assignments, right at the end, right before it said practice worksheets, you see a page that says review for the test. Number of questions, points, okay? We are going directly from our poster up here. So on the top poster is our unit A of what you need to be able to do. First off, when is the test? It is Tuesday.
9/26.
9/26. Okay? Tuesday, September 26th. The number of questions. Did you guys find it the other day? Yes. 12 questions. 56. Okay? 12 questions, 56 points. Okay? Cassandra, on the top of that pink poster over there, you want to read our first standard that we're going to see? So I can add, subtract, multiply with matrices, right? Please write that as your first standard that you're having. I can add, subtract, and multiply with data in a matrix or matrices. There will be 2 questions total of 8 points. So 12 points each.
If there's like multiplying both.
You're going to have add, subtract, and multiply. I I would say when you look at the review that we're doing, you're going to see that. Okay, so there's 2 questions. And then it says, how well do you know this? Well, that's kind of, that last one, that's kind of you deciding. I don't know how well you know it. You want to think about that. Those were our standards that we're looking at, okay? Now you want to read the next standard that's up there on the pink poster?
I can use unit analysis to solve real-world problems.
I can use unit analysis to solve real-world problems. So, I had some people say, when they did that last one on the quiz, and they were multiplying, all the different units that we had, okay? And what we were looking for in that was that, like, these 2 units, they canceled. And these 2 units canceled. And I was looking for the units canceling. And someone said, well, I just did all that multiplying and dividing in my head, and I just put the answer down. I want you to know that for the standard, there is 1 question on the test, and it's 6 points. And if you just give me the answer and you don't show me the crossing off of the units, I can't say that you know unit analysis. I can say you know how to multiply and divide things, and you came up with the right answer, but I am not seeing the canceling of units. So please make sure you show that I can see, oh, you canceled feet with feet and miles with miles to get your final answer. And you'll see in your homework today exactly. If you only give me the answer and the answer is right, I can give you 1/6 of the points, right? I can give you 1 point out of 6 because you got the answer. Did you show me that you know the standard? No. And so then I have to mark that wrong, all right? Looking at that next standard, Jacob, you want to read that next standard that we have up there?
I can solve equations or inequalities and justify each step.
Okay, so I can solve inequalities, so equations and inequalities. So equations are with our equal, our inequalities with our greater or less than. And I will actually add to this one also your absolute value will be here. You're going to see some of those that you have to solve. Absolute value, both equations and inequalities. And you have to justify, okay? Justify the steps. And if you've talked to any of your, if you've talked to any of your classmates that are in geometry, this is exactly what they start in geometry. You have to be able to give the reason why. So we did this earlier. Those were our, this is the subtraction property of equality. So the justifying, and you'll see this in just a minute. I'll show you, Hale, in your homework. Okay? So you have 7 questions, total of 30 points.
That's the majority of it.
It's a big majority of this unit. 30 points. Questions, big part of this test. Questions are anywhere from 4 to 5 points each. Some are 4, some are 5, for a total of 30 points in this section. Okay. You will also have in this section the literal equations. Okay, that's where you have to solve for one of the variables, literal equations. You will also have in this section where you have to graph those inequalities, right? So I might say solve and graph. And with the literal equations, I might be looking, I usually don't get much for bonus points, but I might be looking at something like you explaining in words kind of what, like we did with those worksheets, those NIMSY ones of what did this mean, what does it look like. I haven't decided that for sure yet. If we look at the last standard up here, Mason, would you read that last standard on the pink poster?
I can create and use equations or inequalities to solve problems.
So I can create and use equations and inequalities. And along with that, I will say you will definitely have an absolute value one that you have to create, like our homework, like that 19 through 22 that we were doing today, right? Absolute value ones. And you have to be able to solve it. So create it and solve. there are only 2 questions. That's all you have left. And that is 12 points total. So you can figure that when you're writing the equation, that's 3 points, that's half of it, and then the solution is the other half of the 6 points per question. Okay. So as you are looking at this, if you would turn to your workbook, and the A13 is where you're going to start. And the literal equations are like 11 and 12, maybe 13, yep, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so you start with that first page. That second page, that's where you see your unit analysis. Remember, this is what you're trying to get, feet per minute. So I know that in my numerator here, I want feet, and I want the unit minute in my denominator. The next page, that's the justify page, or then you have the equations writing them. Oh, wait, let's see. Yep. The equations that you're writing, and then the next page is the justify. Okay? So, as you are looking at this justify, you have 30 questions. It is not due tomorrow. It is not due till Tuesday when you take the test. If you finish it and you want to turn it in before, my recommendation is that you keep it and practice and stuff and keep it till Tuesday if you finish. Okay? If you walk in here on Tuesday and you do not have A13 done, you are not taking the test. You are not taking the test. What are you doing? You're working on homework.